A warm welcome, everyone, to Amazing You. I am your host, Rani Thanakodi. I am a hypnotherapist and also a Mars Venus life and relationship coach and astrologer. I help women and men who feel stuck in their lives to overcome their emotional and physical issues by using a rapid and innovative hypnotherapy method to get rid of those issues so that they live a fulfilling life and relationships without spending years in therapy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Amazing You. And today I have the great pleasure to introduce you to Eric Sean, who is author, speaker, and coach from the States. So welcome, Eric, to Amazing You.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's my greatest pleasure. So tell us briefly about your story, Eric.
I have a pretty dynamic story. In hindsight, I was blessed with a lot of traumatic yet amazing experiences. I come from a teenage mother who was 16 years old. She was a drug addict, a prostitute. She actually had me while she was incarcerated. Um, I went from prison to foster care in 5 days. I was in foster care until I was 9 years old. I experienced every form of abuse: physical, mental, emotional, sexual. When I was 9 years old, I was adopted by my father, who was a single white homosexual male.
Okay.
So I was taken from the ghetto um, and moved into suburbia. When I was a little kid, I remember I always felt like that I was worthless, I was broken, I was devalued. And not only was I broken, I was shattered
Yeah.
because my mom didn't want me.
Mm.
I moved from one foster home into another foster home because my first foster mom died. So in my mind, that was two mothers that didn't want me because I was little. I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
By the time I was 9 years old, I hated every fiber of my being. I knew that if there was a God, he either hated me or he was just too busy to pay attention to what was going on. When I up before I was adopted, I hated myself, but it was all internal. I always felt different. When I became adopted and I moved to this area where I looked different than everybody else, I talked different than everybody else. Now it wasn't just internal. Now my reality resembled my insides, and I was completely different from everybody. And now not only did my mom not want me, now I had my whole race that didn't want me because I felt completely thrown away. By the time, and I'm this is obviously the short version. By the time I was 14 years old, I was in and out of drug and alcohol treatment centers 3 times.
Okay.
Drugs and alcohol became like the one thing that allowed me to feel like that I was everybody else. It quieted that voice in my head that kept telling me that I was nothing and I would never amount to anything and nobody would ever love me and I was unlovable and I was worthless. And
Mm.
um, by the time I was 30, I was basically sleeping on people's couches. Got to the point where I ate out of a garbage can because I was very hungry and had no money. And one night I remember sitting around
Yeah.
and I kept playing this song over and over and over and over again. And the thought that was running through my mind was, I can't go on living like this.
Mm.
I was too afraid to kill myself, but I knew that something had to change.
Okay.
And at that very moment, I said, God, please help me.
Wow.
And I can tell you within a matter of days, he provided people into my life that would help to change the whole scope of my belief.
That's beautiful. That's a very inspiring story. Thank you, Eric. So, Eric, what has inspired you to start your business?
So when I said this prayer and I stopped stopped drinking and I stopped abusing alcohol and stopped abusing cocaine,
Yeah.
a man showed up into my life. He was a Buddhist sensei.
Okay.
And he was the first person who allowed me to see that, number one, I was my problem.
Right.
My thinking was my biggest problem.
Mm.
He also said the good news is that if you're the problem, you're also the solution.
Yes. Yeah.
So if he basically taught me that if I can learn to take responsibility for my actions and my thoughts,
Yeah.
then I can identify my thoughts, I can change my thoughts, and thoughts become things.
Yes.
So everything that I thought was bringing in my actions and my results all matched my thoughts. So he helped me to realize that once I was able to change my thinking, then my actions and my results would change also. And so I was probably, I think I was like 19 or 20 years old. I
Okay.
started working at this health club. And it was a period where I had a couple periods of sobriety over that time where I wasn't abusing drug and alcohol. And when I was in the gym, I figured out that this was something that made me feel good. It
Mm.
made me feel like that I could have some control over my life and I could change things. And I fell so in love with that's when I first began to look at personal training,
Okay.
because I figured that if it made me feel like I had value, that I could help other people feel like that they had value.
Yes.
And I can tell you the one thing that I've always been in touch with, even in my darkest moment, was that there was a need inside of me to connect with other people. And I always believed that I had something to help motivate people. And I always had a need and a responsibility to share the little bit of love that I had
Yeah.
with other people. And that was something I had always been in touch with. So once I found this, I wanted to help other people to discover the same thing.
Right.
So I started personal training, and the personal training kind of led into me sharing my experience with other people and my strength and my hope. And I always think that there's a natural progression. Like when we do a little bit of self-discovery, it opens up a whole nother doorway. And so from the personal training, the next doorway that opened up was to
Yes.
start doing life coaching. And so then I slowly started doing life coaching, um, which led to me slowly writing books and getting into motivational speaking. And so with every adjustment in my mindset, it created different results, and those results just kept growing and growing and growing. And so it almost seemed like it was just a natural progression. It wasn't like I decided anything. It was just like the next door that opened up, and I just had to walk through it, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. And what has been the greatest challenge in your life, Eric? And how did you overcome it?
The greatest challenge for me and this was something that I struggled with for the majority of my life,
Right.
was for me to realize that I didn't have to do anything to be of value. I didn't have to do anything to be lovable. I didn't have to do anything to be allowed to live. Because most of my life, I really felt like that my life was pointless. And slowly but surely, through using these tools that I learned,
Mm.
it allowed me to realize that I was absolutely perfect. And all I had to do was to be my authentic self.
Mm.
It was like I discovered that I'm my own superhero, because
Yes.
I have a skill set that nobody else has. I have unique experiences that nobody else has. I have a way of talking to people that nobody else has. I mean, and all I have to do is just be me. I
Yeah.
just have to be my authentic self, and the people that I'm supposed to touch will show up. It's like, if you're your authentic self, your tribe will arrive.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, that was the biggest obstacle that I had to overcome, was allowing myself to exist and be comfortable in my own skin, and realize that I was created with a purpose, and that I just had to take that purpose and relish in that passion and move forward, just being me.
Absolutely. Thank you. And who has been the most influential person in your life, Eric?
I really think that I had a couple,
Okay.
and one was, I remember when I was 12 years old, 12 or 14, I was in trouble because I stayed in trouble when I was a kid. I mean, I stayed in trouble. Um, and I remember that I was watching a PBS special and Les Brown came on.
Right.
And Les Brown talked about how he had been diagnosed that he was with a learning disability, that he had been adopted, and these experiences that I had experienced. Because when I was in second grade, I was labeled emotionally basically slow. You
Okay.
know, so he was the first person that I actually seen in a position of power or success that seemed to come from anywhere close to the stuff that I had been through.
Yeah.
And he was this motivational speaker, and he was reaching all of these people. And I said, I can do that too. So I think that when I saw him, that was definitely a milestone that shifted or planted a seed that there was greater things to come in my life, or that I could create greater things.
Yeah.
The other person was Craig Horton, who was this Buddhist sensei that I ran into.
Okay.
He approached me, and he would ask these questions that I would really have to think about.
Okay.
It allowed me to, for a split second, to question what I already believed. And the one thing that I
Yes.
noted is that until somebody is in a position where they're willing to question themselves, they're not going to hear anything. You can't teach those who know.
Yeah.
And he allowed me to realize and to admit and to be okay with not knowing. So
Mhm.
I was open to receiving something different.
Wow.
And I think it was his approach because people had been trying to reach me forever. So I think that God used this Buddhist sensei to connect with me. So I would say that those two people really played a big part in altering the trajectory of my life.
Yes. That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. What quote has helped you to cope in challenging times?
I'm trying to remember who the quote is from. Livingston. Um,
Okay.
but the quote is a man without a dream is like a broken winged bird that cannot fly.
Right. Mm.
And I just always understood that.
Okay.
I always understood that because for a long time that was the story of my life.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And what would you say, Eric, to encourage people today who are listening and watching and who are facing some tough times?
I would say number one, that this too shall pass, that whatever you're going through right now probably seems huge. It's probably weighing down on you, and it probably feels very heavy. But most of the things that we have going on in our life right now that we're worrying about, that's taking all of our energy, it's really a matter of changing our perception. It's really a matter sometimes of just hanging in there and waiting for a new day. But we can all, just with changing the way that we look at things, and I'll give you an example. When I was a child, I thought all these situations were terrible,
Yeah.
right? But in hindsight, they were the best things in the world. I always felt like nobody loved me. But in reality, what happened is just by shifting my perception, I realized that my adoptive father didn't have to open up his home for me. I was a stranger. He loved me. Every foster home that opened up their home to me loved me.
Yeah.
My mother loved me because she knew that she couldn't provide for me the way that she thought that I should be provided for.
Yeah.
So it's we just have to be able and be willing to use the mental faculty that God gave us of reason and be able to change our perception.
Yes.
So whatever it is, it's probably not as bad. Matter of fact, I can guarantee you it's not as bad as it appears to be at that moment.
That's so true. And perception plays such an important role.
Our perception is our reality.
Yes, yeah, I completely agree with you. So tell us more, Eric, about the books that you have written, because you've told me before you've written a few books. I'm very curious to know more about that, for the
Yeah,
audience to know about your books as well.
I went through a period of time where I was, again, all of the information that I learned from my struggle, because the one thing that I learned early on is that when you take all the trauma and the stuff that you've gone through and you hold on to that, it eats you alive.
Yes,
But
yeah,
as soon as you can, and it's negative energy, but as soon as you can take that information and use it to help other people, then it becomes positive,
yeah.
right? And it has a meaning, and therefore it's not bad at all. So I went through a period of time where I was just really big into writing. One book, the first book that I wrote, and it was more for my healing than anybody else's healing. It's called On Broken Wings, and it was basically an autobiography of all the things that I'd gone through and the lessons that I'd learned from them. Being a personal trainer, I wrote a couple books on nutrition,
Right.
one on emotional eating called Who's Eating Who? You
Okay.
know, are you really eating or are your emotions eating you?
Yes.
And I wrote one called Awakening the Phoenix, because the reality, I've always loved the story of the Phoenix. The
Yes.
Phoenix rose from the flames.
Yes.
And I think that at any given time, most of us can look back and we can think of 4, 5, or 6 stories where we were in the flames and basically we got our strength. The universe, God took care of us and provided for us, and we were able to rise out of those flames.
Yeah.
You know, I think that most of us are always evolving. So I was really big into writing, and I always believe that all of us have a story to tell,
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
and we never know who our story is going to help.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Eric. And tell us briefly about your business and how can people contact you?
You know, I was just talking about evolving. So my business is evolved more into going from individual coaching to group coaching.
Okay.
For the last year, I've been doing these masterminds, and you know, I think that in order to change, and I talk about these mental faculties that God has given us, and just a couple, you know, one, most of us give up on our dreams. We give up on the ability to dream.
Yes.
We lose hope in anything bigger than where we are because we get stuck in survival mode.
Yes.
So the mastermind teaches people how to learn to dream again, and not only to dream, but the tools that's needed to kind of change your mindset so that that dream can become a reality.
Yeah.
Most of us walk around with resentment and hate. It talks about the benefit of forgiving other people, but most importantly, forgiving you.
Absolutely.
You know, we
Yes.
have to remember that we have to forgive ourselves, because most of the decisions that we made, we did the best we could at that moment with the information that we had.
That's true.
Right? When we know better, we do better. It talks about overcoming fear, because most people are afraid to make the next decision, to move to the next level. And the biggest thing is how to change that subconscious, how to change your mindset.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard to believe that you can make a lot of money. As an example, it's hard to believe that you can make a lot of money when basically you really believe that money is hard to come by.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So until you change that base paradigm, and until you change that belief system, but once you change it, you can create anything in the world that you want. So I've taken all the tools that I've learned over the years that have helped me to go from being this broken kid who hated himself into a successful business person who wakes up every single morning excited about getting out of bed and living life. And I put it into a 8-week program. It's called Purposefully Living by Design.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And how can people reach you, Eric?
They can reach me through my website is the easiest way.
Okay. Can you tell us the name of your website?
Yeah, the website is eric-sean.com.
Oh,
eric-sean.com.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you, Eric, for sharing your amazing journey that will inspire a lot of people. And I would like to say a big thank you to you and wish you a lot of success. And God bless you, Eric.
And I appreciate you having me. I always say that a lot of times we overestimate our greatest commodity, which is time. So I appreciate you and your audience sharing some time with me today.
My pleasure. And thank you for the audience for being here and for listening today. Thank you.